Welcome to Perpetual's assessment feedback session on our 2019 Impact Philanthropy application program. This information is relevant to organisations who submitted an application for funding in late 2018 and did not meet our required criteria to receive a recommendation for funding this financial year. This is not to say you won't receive funding for your application, but rather your chances of securing funding through this process will be low. We hope that by providing you with this information earlier, you might have the opportunity to secure support through other channels and allow more time to revisit your funding priorities for next financial year. We also hope this feedback will help with your applications in the future. There are 7 critical questions that we use to assess each application. This presentation provides some of the common reasons why organisations score poorly. A separate webinar on how to best answer these questions is located on our website. If you haven't viewed it already, we recommend that you do, and ideally prior to continuing with this session. We received 1,436 applications for funding in our 2019 application program, slightly down from 2018. There was an increase in high-ranking applications and a decrease in low-ranking or ineligible applications. We assess all applications on a scale of 1 to 5, and they must meet our eligibility criteria. We will address ineligible applications later in this presentation. Applications that receive a 4 or 5 on our ranking scale are highly recommended for funding. A 3 ranking is also considered as a fair application. This group of 3s, 4s and 5 proceed through our process for consideration for funding as long as they meet the necessary eligibility criteria. Applications who receive a 1, 2 or are ineligible are not recommended for funding. Organisations that fall into this category receive an email informing them that their application will not be progressing to the next stage. A breakdown of funding distributed on behalf of our clients in 2018 is shown on the graph on the right. 95% of funding was allocated largely amongst applications that scored a 3, 4 or 5. Ineligible or low-ranking applications received minimal funding. We will now talk through our assessable questions. All of these questions are focused around 4 key themes: strategy, leadership, capability and outcomes. We focus on these areas as the philanthropists we work with want to invest in organisations that are well governed, outcomes focused and understand the communities they serve. This includes being able to articulate your organisation's mission and strategic priorities and how effectively you are tracking the progress of these priorities or achieving your mission, having an understanding of organisational risk with strategies in place to mitigate or safeguard them, understanding what a sustainable business model looks like and how this is measured, and finally being outcomes focused. You must be able to demonstrate activity outcomes with evidence that is measurable, realistic, and will provide a clear picture of the long-term impact of funding. I will now run through the 7 critical or assessable questions. Note that the numbering and wording of questions may vary slightly in future application forms. However, the intention of the questions will be the same. The first of 4 questions that relate to key performance indicators or KPIs. KPIs help organisations to track and monitor what is important or how well they are performing against their strategic goals. They measure financial performance, operational and internal processes, and client satisfaction, to name a few. Questions 1.8 and 1.9 relate to efficiency KPIs and how you are measuring them. Of all the questions that we assess against, these were answered the most poorly amongst low-scoring applications. Efficiency KPIs are commonly measured by comparing inputs and the outputs used to achieve them. For example, staff turnover rates, a reduction in the cost of program delivery, number of complaints, OH&S incidents, occupancy rates, etc. The important thing to remember here is that we are looking for specific KPIs that also include targets or benchmarks to demonstrate how you are achieving them. For example, maintain staff retention rate at 75%, with the performance measure being staff retention rate of 90% achieved in 2018. The main reasons for not scoring well in these questions are as follows. KPIs are not well defined or able to be quantified. Responses provided general statements. For example, income targets are monitored by CFO instead of specific KPIs and targets. No targets or benchmarks were provided in the response. Organisations must be able to demonstrate how efficiencies are being tracked. And effectiveness KPIs were provided instead of efficiency KPIs. Questions 1.10 and 1.11 relate to effectiveness KPIs, or how well your organisation is tracking against its mission or having an impact. Effectiveness measures should relate specifically back to your organisation's mission and strategy, and to how your board or leadership team measures how effective the organisation is at achieving its strategic priorities. Some examples of effectiveness KPIs are client feedback, growth in number of services delivered or tickets sold, and increased satisfaction levels of staff or volunteers. The main reasons why organisations scored poorly for these questions are as follows. KPIs are not well defined or able to be quantified. Broad statements were provided, for example, client feedback collected regularly. Responses provided a general statement about the organisation's mission or a variation of the strategic priorities of the organisation. No performance targets were provided to support the KPIs. As with the efficiency questions, we are looking for measurable KPIs, and you must be able to demonstrate how you are tracking them with benchmarks or targets. When demonstrating performance of KPIs met or achieved is not a sufficient answer. Provide actuals or specific results to qualify your statements. For example, 100% of staff engaged for FY18, an increase of 15% from FY17. Question 1.12 relates to the external forces and trends that are presenting challenges to your organisation. Note that we have modified this question and the next one, 1.13, which relates to internal risks. We now require you to provide a list of key challenges or risks in the first section, a few keywords only to summarise, and provide more detail in the section below. For example, an external challenge might be Australia's ageing population, which you enter in the top list, and in the section below expand further. For example, ageing population is causing increasing demands on healthcare, which is impacting your ability to deliver services. We are interested in your awareness of the external environment and how it is impacting your organisation, be it public policy, sector change, government funding, etc. This will demonstrate to us that an organisation's board or leadership team understands the environment in which it is operating. The key here is the challenges must be external to your organisation. The three main reasons for receiving a low score on this question are as follows. Responses provided broad-based external forces only and no further context into its effect on the organisation or sector, for example, an unstable political environment. Responses provided internal risks, which focus specifically on internal operational matters within the organisation. Responses with an emphasis on the competitive funding environment only were provided. Although this is a challenge facing most organisations, we are looking for organisations who understand the other forces they are facing beyond funding. Question 1.13 relates to the key internal risks affecting your organisation and accompanying mitigation strategies. Between 3 and 5 risks are required, and again, we require you to list them first, summarise into a couple of keywords, and provide further detail below. This question is an opportunity for organisations to demonstrate that their board or leadership team understands organisational risk and has strategies in place to mitigate or safeguard them. Risks can be divided into 5 categories: financial, strategic, legal, operational, and brand or reputation. The main reasons for organisations not scoring well in this question were as follows. Responses provided only 1 or 2 general risks, or risks that were relatively the same but reworded. Responses only provided financial risks, such as reliance on government funding. Again, there are a number of different types of risks, and providing only one category doesn't demonstrate that your organisation is managing risk more broadly. Responses included risks only and no accompanying mitigation strategies. You must be able to demonstrate how you are combating or safeguarding against the risk. The final question relates directly to the project itself. We're looking for the expected project outcomes and how they will be measured or tracked. Organisations must provide evidence of realistic, measurable goals or project outcomes, including their impact on society. For example, an increase in literacy levels for students by 10% year on year. Importantly, we are not looking for outputs, which in this case would be delivery of books into schools. The main reasons for organisations not scoring well are as follows. Responses listed outputs rather than outcomes. Responses included broad statements such as increase or improvement without any measurable targets. Responses included non-specific measurement information or did not include any measures. Our last discussion point relates to applications that are considered to be ineligible. Eligibility criteria for the Impact Philanthropy Application Program is provided in the guidelines available on our website. If an organisation does not meet all of the criteria, their application will be deemed as ineligible and the application is not assessed. There are several reasons why an application will be marked as ineligible, including the following. An additional application was received over the maximum limit that your organisation could submit. In this case, the last application above the limit would be deemed ineligible. You applied for greater than $200,000 or applied for retrospective funding. Your organisation has failed to submit acquittal reports for activities that have been funded in the past. If this was the case, our team would have contacted your organisation's CEO several times following up on this overdue report. You answered no to I confirm the organisation is not under administration. You answered no to I confirm the organisation is a going concern. Your organisation appears on the ACNC double defaulters list. Or finally, your organisation is not a registered charity with the ACNC or not an endorsed DGR1 by the Australian Tax Office. This is the end of our session. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and we hope that this additional information has been useful.